this video is just ending up being a video of me telling you about all the videos that I'm going to make. Hey everyone, it's Olivia and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about all of the things that I've read not so recently, basically everything that I've been reading since I've been in quarantine. I call them my Quaran reads. I think I'm clever. That's been since mid-March up until now. So it's about 17 books that I've read thus far, which is quite a lot to be honest. I think this is the most I've ever read before in my entire life, and I guess if one good thing has come out of this quarantine, it's that I have ample time to just read. So here are all the books that I've been reading. So I'm gonna start off with these books that I've hidden away back here. So I have been reading the Shadowhunter Chronicles by Cassandra Clare. I have been buddy reading them with my friend Mary, so we've been reading designated sections from each book and then discussing them, so she's been along for the ride with me. I have never read these, she has never read them, so we both jumped into this world having heard a lot of things about them. We both felt like we had missed the train when the first book, City of Bones, was published in 2007 and so on and so forth. So we didn't read it when we were younger, we're reading it now when we're in our early 20s. If you missed the Shadowhunter train like we did, then I'm just gonna do some quick summaries about what they're about. If you haven't heard about them, then you've been living under a rock. But Cassandra Clare is a huge favorite here on BookTube, so I'm sure that you've definitely heard a lot about her and her books. The Mortal Instrument series is the first series that she published. It consists of 6 books. It follows the story of a 15-year-old girl named Clary Frey who discovers that she is a shadow hunter, this race of demon hunters that have been blessed by the angel and have angel blood in their veins. Her mom was a shadow hunter who kept this secret from her, and her mom gets kidnapped, and Clary finds herself in this world of shadow hunters that she knows nothing about and just trying to get her mom back. I was really intrigued by this world. I think that's the main reason why I've continued reading these books. Because this was 2007, this is one of the staple YA novels. The main character, she's 15 and she's really young and juvenile, and I feel like if I had read this book when I was younger, I definitely would have enjoyed it more. Reading it now, everything just seems really juvenile to me, and like the main character Clary is like super annoying to me, but like all of the characters, not just Clary, I find really annoying as well. And you would think that they're raised as shadow hunters, so they've been raised to fight demons basically since birth. You would think that because of that life and death situation that they would be smarter, but they're not. They're still teenagers, which I think is actually kind of great, because then teenagers are just universally the same despite being demon hunters. So the series consists of 6 books, like I said. The first one is City of Bones, the second one is City of Ashes, the third one is City of Glass, the fourth one is City of Fallen Angels, the fifth book is City of Lost Souls, and the final book is City of Heavenly Fire. So we read the first 3 books. This follows a specific arc with the main villain being Valentine Morgenstern. Honestly, if I wasn't reading these books with my friend, I definitely would not have gotten through these books on my own. I would have DNF'd them because they're so boring. I found them really uninteresting. The characters were annoying to me. The world was really the only aspect of these books that actually intrigued me and at least helped me get through reading these books. After reading the first arc within the Mortal Instruments series, I didn't like it. I felt like the plot really could have been written better and more interestingly. The ending was super anticlimactic. I felt like with all the buildup that is done throughout the books that there should have been something more satisfying. Like there really isn't much payoff at the end of this arc, and I feel like it was really lacking in that sense. So I didn't really enjoy these books at all. And then for the last 3 books in the Mortal Instruments, I also felt like it was anticlimactic in the end. I'm starting to notice that Cassandra Clare kind of has a pattern in terms of writing plot. Her stories are definitely more character driven than anything else, and I feel like she really sacrificed a lot of the plot in order to make her characters have some semblance of development. But even, especially in these books, I felt like it was really unnecessary. Like there was a lot of really slow build up to the finale, and the finale, City of Heavenly Fire, I thought was the strongest book. I think most people would agree. The way that the plot unraveled in this book especially felt natural. It felt interesting. I felt like there was consistent pacing and like the build-up was really building up to something great. But again, it had an anticlimactic ending. I feel like with everything that kind of builds up to this point, you want a satisfying ending, but what happens is kind of just like, oh, and then there's just like this ton of falling action at the end, which I really didn't like. City of Heavenly Fire was definitely the most interesting out of these 6 books, and I find it kind of ridiculous that it took 6 books to get to here, where it's the best within the series, but definitely not something that I would say is absolutely amazing, which is pretty disappointing, honestly. And The Infernal Devices consists of 3 books: Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess. This series takes place in Victorian England, so it takes place a long time before Mortal Instruments takes place. So this series follows Tessa Gray, who is an orphan teenage girl who discovers that she has the ability to shapeshift. She basically gets kidnapped by these warlock sisters who train her to control her powers, and then she gets wrapped into this world of shadow hunters. So it follows Tessa as she lives in the London Institute and helps the shadow hunters figure out how to defeat this rising villain who is creating a clockwork army, hence the name Clockwork whatever. So I definitely enjoyed Infernal Devices a lot more than I did Mortal Instruments. I felt like this one had stronger writing. Maybe it's because of the time period, but I liked it more. Tessa was definitely a more interesting heroine than Clary was in the Mortal Instruments. I found like the pacing and the plot to be a lot more interesting as well in the Infernal Devices. However, again, it does fall under the same curse of the Mortal Instruments series, which is the anticlimactic ending. I feel like with all of this build up, I really wanted there to be more of an epic ending and more of a satisfying one, but I enjoyed the characters a lot more. Like I said, Cassandra Clare has very character driven stories, and I feel like I was much more invested in Tessa and Will and Jem. I'm not the biggest fan of like the whole love triangle thing that happens in this, but it was handled relatively well. I definitely enjoyed the Infernal Devices a lot more than I did the Mortal Instruments. It made me really excited to read all of Cassandra Clare's more recent books. I was really hearing a lot about how much better her writing gets, so after reading Infernal Devices, I started to get a lot more excited. We decided to take a break from reading together and just have some time for ourselves. In the meantime, I picked up some other books. The next book that I picked up was Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi, which is the sequel to Children of Blood and Bone. I actually read this book with my friend Daniel because we had both read Children of Blood and Bone already and really loved it. It was really fun to read this book with him. And my initial thoughts on this book was, oh, I really enjoyed reading that. It gave me all the feels. I love the expansion of the world and the magic system within this series a lot. And if you watched my mid-year book freakout tag, you would know that I selected this book for my favorite sequel of the year. And as much as I did enjoy it, looking back, I've had some time to really think about how much I really actually enjoyed this story. To be honest, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought that I did, because I honestly don't like any of the POV characters. The main 3 characters, Zaylee, Inan, and Amari, I just hate all of them equally. They all kind of really suck to me, and their character development to me made a lot of sense, but I definitely infinitely love them more in Children of Blood and Bone, and I feel like they were just going in the wrong direction that I wanted them to in this book. I feel like they all make really stupid decisions and they have the worst communication ever, and what really made me upset was all the unnecessary deaths. And there's just so many relationship conflicts between all of them that I really hate, and I feel like the relationships, like the romantic ones, are very forced and just kind of is there because of heteronormativity and the need to have romance within a book, and I just wasn't into that. I was kind of sitting here like, well, stop giving them love interests and actually give them some character development that makes me want to root for them. So the main problem within the series is that they are trying to get Amari to take over the throne of Orisha. I think that's how you pronounce it. And Zaylee is really powerful and she's trying to put Amari on the throne so that they can have equality for magic. But Amari does something in this book that really just pisses me off so much and makes me just think, well, she's not good enough for the throne, and her brother Inan definitely isn't, and Zaylee, even if she wanted to be queen, I think doesn't deserve it either. I feel like all of them are terrible options to rule, so I really don't know where the rest of the series is going. I really hope that this book is like suffering from middle book syndrome and that the ending actually like ties everything together and makes sense and actually has some really good character development, because otherwise I really can't tell what's going to happen, and I'm not rooting for any of these characters, so I just feel like I need more. But I love the magic system in this, like I said, the world building, and I feel like the writing is really strong. I had a lot of feelings about this book. I have high hopes for the ending, so fingers crossed that it's good. So the next book that I picked up was Again But Better by Christine Riccio, and this has been on my TBR for a really long time, basically since before it came out. When Christine announced that she was writing this book, I was really excited, and I was really excited especially by the premise. The book is about 20-year-old Shane, who is a college pre-med student who feels like she's doing college wrong. She doesn't have any friends, she has like zero social life, she's never been in a relationship before, and she's 20 years old, so she feels like she's missing out a lot on her life experience. So she decides to take a semester abroad in London, and she has a list of goals. She wants to travel, she wants to find adventures, she wants to make friends, she wants to kiss a boy, she wants to pursue her dreams of becoming a writer. So she goes to London hoping to accomplish all these things. And I was really excited about this premise because up until recently, because I just graduated, I was a college student and I'm actually really socially awkward. I have trouble making friends and never been in a relationship before, so I felt like Shane was going to be that character that I could relate a lot to. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and that's fine. You don't have to relate to your character in order to enjoy reading their story in their book. However, I didn't enjoy reading this book at all. Shane is actually really annoying to me. She's extremely entitled, and I feel like that just really pissed me off reading this book. But amongst other things, I thought this was going to kind of be like one of those coming of age stories, but for a character who's older. I thought this was going to be about her personal development because she lied to her parents who have been pressuring her to become a doctor, and that's why she's in pre-med, but she actually wants to be a writer. And so she lied to them about there being a pre-med program in London, and she's actually there for a writing program. And so I thought this was going to be this really great journey about personal growth and discovery, but it mainly just focused on the romance, and that's fine. It's a contemporary novel. Of course there's going to be romance. I felt like it was overwhelmingly about the romance and just the romance, like that was the main focus. And even then I couldn't even like the book because the romance felt so forced between Shane and her love interest, and I really didn't like them at all, and so I really wasn't that invested in this story. I was interested in the whole time travel aspect because it's called Again But Better. Like, let's be honest here, she does it once and then goes back in time to do it again, but hopefully better. I would argue that no, she didn't do it better. I think she did it worse. I didn't enjoy reading this book. I was really disappointed that I didn't. I have a lot of feelings about this book, and I'm planning on making a video to review this book, so keep your eye out for that. And I won't waste any more time in this video talking about it because, oh, I have so many feelings. So after this, I hopped back on the Shadowhunter Chronicles train with my friend Mary, and we read The Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare and various other authors. It's a series of short stories surrounding the character Magnus Bane, who is a warlock, and it's a series of stories, just like a journey throughout his life, jumping around in the timeline. Magnus is one of my favorite characters. Getting a book all about Magnus was really exciting to me, but reading this, I felt like the writing was kind of off. Maybe it's because it's written by multiple people, but I felt like the characterization wasn't what I expected out of Magnus. I definitely liked him more in Infernal Devices and Mortal Instruments as the side character rather than this main character, which kind of sucks because I really want more Magnus, but I just feel like maybe it's the way that it's written, maybe it's these stories specifically, because I know that there's Red Scrolls of Magic, which is focused on Magnus and Alec as main characters, and I haven't read that yet, so hopefully that one I enjoy more. But for this one, I felt like it was like, okay, like some of the parts of this book I enjoyed reading just because I found some of the historical things and the background information of Magnus to be interesting, but I felt like the characterization really didn't do it for me. And then we picked up Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, which follows the character Simon as he enters the Shadowhunter Academy and is learning to become a Shadowhunter. I actually really enjoyed this book. Simon wasn't really one of my favorite characters, like, at all. So Simon wasn't really somebody who I thought I would be invested in as a character, but I really, really enjoyed reading about his journey in the Shadowhunter Academy in this book. Simon as the main character felt really refreshing in terms of just this mundane, surrounded by a bunch of these arrogant, racist Shadowhunters. I thought it was really interesting, and Simon's role is basically being that voice to be like, hey, like, y'all are racist, and calling them out on their bullshit was like really awesome. So I really enjoyed reading this book. And then we took another break. In this break, I picked up The Fascinators, which I was really excited to read because it's a modern contemporary fantasy novel. I just really loved the cover of this book as well. It was so pretty and intriguing, so I was really excited to be reading this. The Fascinators takes place in this world where magic is just a part of life. So the main character Sam with his best friends James and Delia have a magic club at the school, and it's just the three of them, and they have called themselves the Fascinators. So they're in their senior year of high school, and they're all preparing for this magical convention at the end of the year to show off their magical skills. And this is like a huge bonding thing for them before they go off to college, but then little cracks within the group start showing up. Like Delia starts getting really frustrated with how amateur their magic club is, and James gets involved with a sketchy magical cult, and Sam's struggling because he's in love with James. So all of this kind of comes together at the end. I thought this was going to be so interesting. I was really excited to read it, but unfortunately I was disappointed with this book. I feel like the magic system was never really explained clearly enough for me to be invested in it. I was mostly confused. The plot I felt like was lacking in a lot of different ways. I feel like it had really strange pacing and really strange development, and the ending was totally unsatisfying. And it had the same issue that I had with the Cassandra Clare books with the anticlimactic ending. I feel like all of the details in the story and the build-up should have had more of a payoff, and I felt like the characters also were really two-dimensional, and I was a little confused about the development of all their characters and their relationships to one another. There were so many things that I felt like were lacking in this book. As with Again But Better, I am planning to do a review for this book as well because I have a lot of feelings and I want to dive into more specifics, so keep an eye out for that video. And the next book that I picked up was The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I had heard really good things about this book. I was kind of excited to be reading it because of the premise. This book is about Monty, an 18-year-old bisexual man living in the 18th century, and I was really excited to be reading about queer characters in a historical setting because we don't really get a lot of those, and I was really excited for it. So basically the premise of the story is that Monty is going on this grand tour of Europe with his best friend Percy, who he's secretly in love with, and they are joined by Monty's sister Felicity. But Monty gets into a bit of trouble, which turns into this life-threatening chase across Europe. I was really excited for this premise. It sounded like something that I was definitely going to enjoy. I read about maybe 10 chapters in. I was enjoying the character. I felt like the voice was interesting and refreshing. I was really excited to see how this character would develop because he's pretty arrogant, but unfortunately he really just stays the same throughout the entire book, and literally everything that happens is his fault, and he never thinks about the consequences of his actions, so that made me really upset. And I felt like some of the plot was just extremely convenient or just didn't make sense or didn't really fit, and I feel like the ending again was just not satisfying. I was really expecting this to be like this fun contemporary novel where they go on this road trip across Europe and it's this angsty pining thing, but instead the author kind of threw in like this kind of fantastical element that to me just didn't make any sense, and I feel like the characters and the plot just didn't really match up together, if that makes sense. So I didn't really enjoy it as much as I had hoped. That being said, immediately after I picked up the novella that she wrote as a sequel to this book called The Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky. The Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky. I mean, getting laid, getting lucky, kind of the same thing, which basically follows Monty and Percy's relationship after the events of the first book. And I thought, oh, okay, so Monty didn't develop the way that I had hoped in the first book. I'm hoping in this novella I can see him as somebody who really is trying to be better for the person he loves. That's not what ended up happening in the novella, and I was really disappointed and upset that that didn't happen. There is a sequel to The Gentleman's Guides of Vice and Virtue, and that is The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, I believe, and it follows Felicity, who is literally the only character that I felt like was at least remotely interesting. Since I didn't enjoy Monty's character, I'm hoping maybe Felicity as a main character will be infinitely more interesting, so I'm definitely planning to pick that up. Which leads me to basically what I'm currently reading. Mary and I hopped back onto the Shadowhunter Chronicles chain once more, and we have been reading The Dark Artifices. I have been so excited to start this because so many people have said such amazing things about it, and considering the fact that I genuinely enjoyed Infernal Devices. It wasn't like wow amazing to me, but I was really hoping The Dark Artifices was going to be wow amazing to me. So we have finished Lady Midnight, which is the first book in the Dark Artifices series. So the Dark Artifices series takes place 5 years after the events of the Mortal Instruments, and it follows Emma Carstairs and the Blackthorn family at the LA Institute. And I was like, ooh yay, new setting, ooh yay, new characters. I was really interested in this. Basically what happened was that Emma's parents were murdered during the Dark War, which is the war in the Mortal Instruments, except her parents' death don't like correspond with all the other deaths that had occurred. Instead, they were covered in like these symbols and like thrown in the ocean. So she's never believed that her parents' death was because of the war or anything. This takes place 5 years later, and suddenly there are bodies turning up the same way her parents have been murdered. So I was like, yes, murder mystery, we love it. Crime solving, we love it. But like the whole point of the series is also a focus on the Parabatai bond, which is this special bond between shadow hunters. They swear their lives to each other, and it is forbidden for shadow hunters to fall in love with their Parabatai. And so this also focuses on Emma Carstairs and her Parabatai Julian Blackthorn and how they are in love with each other, but it is forbidden. I was really hoping to enjoy the angsty pining that was going to be involved in this, but unfortunately I really didn't enjoy the way that their relationship played out within this book. I also didn't like how the mystery was solved. I also felt like this book was really slow. This book is like about 700 pages, so it's really thick. I felt like it wasn't developing as rapidly as I would have liked. There are a lot of unnecessary details that I felt were in this book, and again, Cassandra Clare's formula is a character-driven book, so I felt like she sacrificed a lot of the plot in favor of character development and all of these feelings that are involved. I do think that The Dark Artifices is definitely better than The Mortal Instruments, and I still like Infernal Devices' plot better so far. I've only read the first book, so I can't really judge completely on that. I really don't like how it ended up playing out. I'm definitely gonna have to talk a lot more about my feelings about this book because I didn't enjoy it, which I'm pretty sure is an unpopular opinion. So far, The Dark Artifices doesn't feel like anything super special to me. Right now, we are actually in the middle of reading Lord of Shadows. We're about halfway through the book. By the time this video is uploaded, I would have finished it, so I can't really say too much about my opinion on this book because I haven't finished it yet, so maybe I'll just like add on a little bit in the description after I do. But so far, I really have meh feelings about this book as well, just like with Lady Midnight. Again, it's like really slow, and even when like the action seems to pick up, it just kind of has this like really strange way of resolving itself that I really don't like, but it's really consistent with Cassie Clare's writing. You would think by now I'd be so used to it that it wouldn't bother me, but it still bothers me. Like even when I expect it, I'm like, oh my god, action, but it's probably gonna end like this, and it does. It still makes me upset. So yeah, I read about half this book, and so far I'm not that excited to see how it ends. I'm definitely gonna do a video on just the Shadowhunter Chronicles in general, and this video is just ending up being a video of me telling you about all the videos that I'm going to make. Those are all the books that I have read so far since mid-March, basically. I haven't read anything that's like amazed me, and honestly I feel like lately I've been reading a lot of books that are just disappointing me, and that's making me really sad. I'm really hoping that something I pick up later on this year will wow me. Let me know what you've been reading while you've been in quarantine. Let me know what you plan on reading for the rest of the year. If you read any of the books that I've mentioned, let me know what your opinions on them are. I would love to know. If you like this video, then give it a like, and if you want to see more of my stuff, then hit subscribe and make sure to hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload, because I upload on both Mondays and Fridays twice a week, and you don't want to miss out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!